Welcome to Psyber-Conversations, the show where it's okay to agree to disagree. Today we are continuing our discussion of Iron Man 2 from where we left off last week. And if you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe and enjoy the show. Go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say, I think that actually, if they had done just Whiplash, no Justin Hammer, I think it actually would have been better because they really could have played up the two different dad angles, and I think it would have fed into both of their backstories, and it actually could have been good. Michael, what's your take on that?
Well, it was interesting because Anton, Whiplash's father, was the third version of Whiplash, but then he became like the Crimson Dynamo, and then Ivan took over as Whiplash. But I know that in the movie they cut back a lot on like what they actually wanted to do with the character. I'm not sure what they cut back on, but maybe they actually showed him being more of a villain than what we got because they were trying to add in so much into the film. So I wonder if he would have been a better villain if they just kept the original idea that they had for him, and the backstory at the beginning seemed a little just thrown in there, almost like it was like an afterthought. Like we should have maybe gotten a better flashback scene of what it was like with them working with Tony, or how they knew the arc reactor and how they got the plans. Like they just kind of just threw it in there like, oh, here's this random guy just to tell you that he's the villain.
Even if they had had some of the interaction with Anton and Tony's father, like show us some of that history a little bit more.
Yeah. Like show us even besides, like they showed Ivan basically just building a suit, just explaining like, oh, he can do this, but in an arc reactor. But it's like he didn't seem smart the rest of the film because he was, I don't know, of his weird acting or whatever. The way they wrote his character. Yeah, it was just, it
was avenged. Well, he was basically out for vengeance was kind of the thing.
They left him out of so much of the movie. And when we do see him, we either see him being super brilliant at the beginning when he's building the suit, or we see evidence of his brilliance at the end when he's got all of the drones and his new suit. But in the middle of the movie, what we get is him drone better.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you want them to do?
He was trying to play up the I'm not that smart, but really because he had his ulterior motives. Matthew, what's your take on Whiplash?
I still think Mickey Rourke's performance was not good. Even after rewatching, it's not 15 years later, it's not as bad as it was initially to me. I still think he overacted for whatever reason. I just don't like it. I don't think he was the right fit for Whiplash. He looks Eastern European or Western European, whatever you want to call that, but he doesn't, I don't know. He didn't have the chops to match the rest of the film. I just felt like it was too jarring of a performance compared to what Tony does, and then what even Sam Rockwell was doing as Justin Hammer. And then, to your point, I think, he's a weak villain. He made whips to go against arc reactor blasters in Tony's suit. Granted, he kicks his ass in the Monaco scene, but
the Monaco scene is great. The suitcase,
it's a great.
The suitcase thing is that was awesome, and obviously we've seen so many AI videos of people doing that scene, and they're turning into like bizarre stuff.
But he gets his ass kicked in 5 seconds with the help of other people. And then after that, it's no Whiplash until the last 20 minutes of the film. And I feel like a lot of his backstory was missed. And it's just a couple of lines of exposition when he's in the jail with Tony. And he's like, I'll do what
your philosophical.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, that's great. Thank you for telling me, not showing me. I love that. I'm being sarcastic, but no, I still think it's a really weak villain that should have been stronger, and I still don't like it to this day. But I like it more than I did initially. But
Mickey Rourke is this weird guy who has some really great acting ability sometimes, and other times not so much, because he was in a whole bunch of movies in the 80s. And and in the 90s, but it wasn't until he appeared in Sin City that he made this huge comeback and started really
Right.
working. And by the way, I love him in Sin City.
Right.
Yes,
not
One of
agreed.
my favorite characters.
Yeah.
He's one of my
Sin
favorite
City
characters
was-
in Sin City.
Sin City was awesome. So I forget if it was Matthew or Josh when we were talking earlier this week about it, but let's talk about I Want My Bird.
Well, I had just said, I was talking to you about it. The bird was just annoying to me because it's such a lazy, to me at least, it seems like a lazy way to humanize Vanko. It's such a small part that it doesn't affect anything at all. And the only reason it seems to be there is so that he can go, I want my bird, or however he says it. But like, I think they were trying to make him,
bird.
yeah, like they were trying to make the character to say he can form connections. He isn't so antisocial that he has no connections whatsoever. He's actually a misunderstood guy. He's really sweet because he likes his bird, but it didn't work. And
I did not get that at all. I thought it was just filler.
Yeah.
It was definitely
it was a
it
waste
was definitely filler. I mean, his dad
Yeah.
dying at the beginning,
I'm like,
and
what?
he's
The
like
bird?
crying and screaming.
What if the bird?
Yeah,
Yeah, his dad dying at the
he's-
beginning, and he's crying and screaming. I mean, that showed at least that he had some
Yeah.
heart and love, and there was like empathy, and like he is still a human. Yeah, we didn't eat the bird though. I mean,
Yeah. I'm like, I did understand that, right? Yeah. Leah.
Very-
it was,
very
it was
Dr.
weird.
very Dr. Evil of him if he started
So I
petting
think-
it, and
I think I heard, don't know if this is-
Bigglesworth.
I'm not sure, but I think I heard that Mickey Rourke was the one who wanted to do the bird, though. He like demanded it. It wasn't
Oh.
part of the story, and he was like, I need to have a bird or something. I don't know.
And we'll never know if that's the truth or not. Those are always great
Yeah,
stories.
Yeah, I have
But
no idea.
let's talk about too Don Cheadle replacing Terrence Howard, which we talked about. We don't need to go into the why Terrence Howard didn't come back thing because we beat that up a little bit on the last episode for Iron Man. But and if you didn't hear it, you should go back and listen to it and subscribe. But anyway, yeah. So, but let's talk about Don Cheadle. And we've had him now for the whole time, becoming War Machine. Thoughts on him?
We've gotten to the point where when I watch the first Iron Man, it's weird to me to see Terrence Howard, not vice versa. Whereas the first time I saw Iron Man 2, it was like, oh, who's this guy? Because that wasn't the Rhodey I remembered. But yeah, Don Cheadle is phenomenal as Rhodey.
Mhm.
Terrence Howard, well, I don't know if he could have been as good,
Right.
because I can't see it. But Don Cheadle did a tremendous job.
I agree
Right.
with that. I like Don Cheadle a lot better. Terrence Howard gave me that stick up his ass type of character where he was just no fun at all. Where Don Cheadle and gave that more,
more relaxed.
more relaxed, but also the more professional militaristic approach. Like he's actually been in the military for his entire life. Whereas Terrence Howard, was kind of a Justin Hammer-esque type of portrayal. It wasn't as good. Not that it was bad, but I like Don Cheadle. I like the way they set him up in Iron Man 2. I actually
Terrence Howard was almost, I see what you're saying, and I agree completely. He's like the annoying sidekick in the first movie.
and
Rhodey is not.
Right. And they definitely postured Rhodey as his own character, even though he's using Tony's tech, and they do the whole, side by side fighting all the drones at the end, which was a sick shot. It definitely feels the color scheme is set apart. I know that's comic book, but it's definitely set apart from the red and gold with just the dark gray and the silver, or the black and the silver, whatever you want to call it. So I really like War Machine in this movie and in every other movie that he's in throughout the MCU. So
yeah, and I think they give that little blurb at the beginning when he walks in for the Senate hearing, and he's like, "Hey, did you change something?" Or what did he say? Like did you get a new haircut or something like that? You look different. And then he's like, "Look, let's just do this." And he turns around, and I thought that was a funny way to kind of, I'm here to deal with it. Exactly. So that was an interesting way to do that.
Do you think the change in the character was more about how it was written, or do you think it's just the actors?
I think
Do you
Don
think they wrote the
Cheadle's.
character differently?
I think he probably a little, but I also think Don Cheadle's just a more seasoned actor, more mature actor than
Yeah, I
Terrence.
think
Again,
both.
not that Terrence Howard's a bad actor, but Don Cheadle fit this character better.
Right.
So, but
Yeah,
yeah, the
but
writing
I-
was more serious in this one for that character.
Yeah. Okay.
The writing
and
was
I
more
suspect
serious,
that's-
but it was.
Go ahead.
I mean, it was different because the first one they really focused on him being the military friend and just the like I don't know, like Terrence Howard played it very much like, oh, I'm also a playboy, yeah. And I think Don Cheadle they took away the. I mean, they do the military scenes, but they take that away once the War Machine armor goes on him, and he's now War Machine. He is. I think they started writing the character differently after that.
But also because, he was the comic relief in the first movie. This one, he's no longer comic relief. Now he's going to be a new superhero.
Yeah, we had Justin Hammer for the comic
Yeah.
relief in this one.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's what we pretty much determined.
Yeah.
So let's jump into Black Widow. So this was Black Widow's debut, Scarlett Johansson. I think we obviously got more Shield in this one. It wasn't just a post-credit scene of Samuel L. Jackson. We actually start getting Shield and its impact on the MCU with Scarlett Johansson, with Black Widow coming in, acting as secretary, more to monitor.
Oh, really?
him.
With all three of them?
Yeah, and I think that first of all, her look in this one I think was the most comic accurate. The longer hair and that type of stuff with the curly red hair and everything else. But thoughts on that on Black Widow. She comes in as the assistant and then kind of reveals herself with Nick Fury. We get the Shield, kind of expanding Shield and what they do. You get a Coulson thing, and they bring the tapes. But anyway, Black Widow and her impact. I mean, she has, when you think about it now, hindsight, she has a huge arc too that ends up ending in Endgame with her thing. We have a Black
Infinity
Widow
War.
stand.
Oh, no, you're right. Endgame.
Yeah, Endgame. And she, she talks about her like, oh, my, wanting to redeem herself for all the bad stuff.
Ledger.
Yeah, Red in the Ledger, that type of thing. And she's always been trying really hard to do that. But we'll stick with Iron Man 2. Thoughts on Scarlett Johansson's performance, the Black Widow character?
I was definitely very excited to see her. I mean, I'm not saying that in my dirty old man way, although I do love Scarlett, but I love the way she was portrayed because it was like we get more of it in the Avengers, but the first few scenes when she's Natalie Rushman, and she plays the character. I don't want to say demure. She never comes across as demure, but more timid at the beginning. And then halfway through the movie, when we get the scene at the donut shop with Nick Fury, and he reveals that she's actually Romanoff's, and her whole demeanor changes.
Yeah,
And
we get
instead
to
of
see
being-
how good she is at being undercover, kind of.
Yeah.
From those opening stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why you can really get behind when Tony says to her, like after he sees her for the first time, after finding out that she's actually Black Widow, and he's like, "You're amazing." Like he says that right to her. Like, was any of what you said just real?
Yeah.
Do you even speak Latin? And she actually says something to him in Latin because, it is all real. She knows everything. Black Widow is this amazing character. But
I will say my favorite part of Iron Man 2 with her is when her and Happy go to
I was gonna say the box.
Oh,
the body count, and then
Well, what is-
and then he looks down the
scene
hallway.
at Hammer Industries. Yeah, that's easily the best part of her. The way they shot that and everything was so good.
Oh,
I also appreciate when a guy can make fun of himself, and John Favreau directed this movie, but he's also happy. So he shot the film on purpose to make it look like he's so happy because he managed to take out one guy. And then he looks
Mhm.
down the hallway and she's taken out every single other person in the building.
Matthew, what's your take on Black Widow? Scarlett Johansson.
I liked her character. I mean, we all knew what she was going into the film. At least I pretty sure we knew in our household that this was Black Widow. You know, she's not who she says she is, and I do wish we had gotten her solo movie sooner. I think that would have built up her character and the connection, because she's shoehorned in here again. It's an overstuffed movie. Not that she detracts from the film at all. She adds to it, but it's also like it would have been nice to get a Black Widow backstory before Avengers 1. I'm glad we ultimately did get that movie after the fact, but it should have been
agree.
here,
I would have liked,
not later.
I would have liked to see a Black Widow movie that took place earlier in the series, and then a Black Widow sequel, which would have been what we did get.
Right. But I mean, overall, I think she was a good character. I think she portrayed it well. A lot of people like to bash on Scarlett Johansson back in the day, but I think over time she's proven her acting chops. I mean, she had 2 Oscar nominations in the same year, for goodness sake. I think she's a great actress, and I think she really did a great job with this character. And I thought it was
in this
well.
movie. Yeah, in this movie, she did fantastic, because you can see the two sides of her very easily when you compare Natalie Rushman to Natasha Romanoff.
Right.
From the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie.
And I like that it does open up S.H.I.E.L.D. more, like, oh, we've got agents everywhere and you don't even know about it. And I think that was a nice touch as well, even though she is not originally from S.H.I.E.L.D. She's from whatever the organization syndicate that it's called.
The Black Widows.
Yeah. With the
ballet.
Yeah. And so, but I think
Jacob Sutter.
Yeah. I liked it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think Black Widow is, I mean, Scarlett Johansson's a great actress, and I think she was a great choice for Black Widow. Going back to what Josh said about wishing that we had her movie sooner, I actually liked where they placed it, only because we had so much time getting to know her as who she was now, and then we got the backstory, which I liked because it showed that she wasn't that person anymore, rather than us like watching her like be that person that she was. And then we're like, why, who is this person? Why do we have to care about her? I like that we already cared about her and that we really felt for her by her movie that she had. You know what I mean? Like we felt, emotionally attached to her, and it was sad when she died in Endgame. So I think having her in Iron Man 2, even if they just threw her in there, and Matthew is right, maybe they threw in too much, but she is a great, I think Black Widow was written very well in every film that she's been in, because she is a great, they have done a great job writing a female hero character that isn't like, look at me, I'm a girl, I can do it. She just did it. Like she is a very great role model for young women to be like, look, you don't apologize for who you are. This is who you are. And this is, she is a hero. She doesn't have power. She doesn't use tech. She just uses her guns and her talents that she unfortunately was taught. She didn't have the choice. They kind of just trained her, but she uses it for good. So I really think that she was written very well, even in this film, even just shoving her in, and she's only in it for a little bit. They did a very good job writing her. I thought she was very well done, even in this film.
She's probably my favorite. Sorry. I just wanted to add. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to address what I said about the movie. Not that I thought that the movie that we did get should have come earlier. I actually like where it was placed, but I mean, there could have been a first Black Widow movie, which would have been a little bit sooner, which would have been things like, they've talked about Budapest several times, how she was there with Hawkeye, and they talk about this awful time that they had and all this red in her ledger. I would have liked to see that. And I don't know if it would have worked as well as a flashback. So having a whole movie on that somewhere, maybe in phase 2, but later in phase 2, but not all the way after she died.
Well, I even think
having-
maybe like if they did do her first movie as like an origin story with Hawkeye too, maybe
Yeah.
that could have been a great film that followed after Iron Man 2. Why not? We're like, oh, we barely knew this person. They give us a secret ending at the end of Iron Man 2 where it like hints at her, with Nick
Yeah.
Fury, that would just lead into her film, like they did at the end of Iron Man 2 where they show Thor's hammer and it was like,
Exactly.
cool, Thor's the next movie. They could have done that.
I would have
Mhm.
loved to see that. So like that, if I had done it, there would have been a Black Widow movie sometime, maybe in phase 1 or early in phase 2, which would be the events before she joined Shields. The parts where she was still working with the KGB and Budapest thing, where she gets recruited into Shield, and then Budapest with Hawkeye. And then the second Black Widow movie would have been the movie we actually did get, which shows her childhood and how she the stuff that leads into her final appearance.
Hmm.
I definitely think
dies.
she definitely did deserve her own movie before, I'd say, before Captain Marvel and even the Wasp too, because technically the Wasp was the first female hero in the MCU to have her name in the title of a film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heather.
So
Well, I was just gonna, off of what Michael was saying about, like we get her backstory later, and I do appreciate that because we do kind of, she continues to be this character with a mysterious past, and we get to know her and like her, and then they tell us, where that came from, and I think that is a good order, I guess. But yeah, I think a more exciting movie about stuff that she had done could have happened.
She definitely has
sooner.
the most
Yeah.
confusing backstory. Like she is, I'd say, one of the like top, like let's say 5 or 10 characters in the Marvel universe that has the most traumatic backstory, like just with being tortured the way she has been. So
Yeah, they
I
could
think
have
it
done
would-
more with an action for her
Yeah.
character sooner. But I think keeping the character that she is now, for as long as they could with a mysterious backstory, I think was a good move. Like, and then you let that backstory in later.
I wonder if
Yeah.
it was. I wonder if back in 2010, if it was just as simple as, well, we're going to start bringing characters, and it's more like, does the audience like this character? Then we'll expand on it. If they don't, I mean, look at, we talked about it the last time with the Incredible Hulk, how William Hurt's character as Thunderbolt Ross, he appeared in like later movies, and it was like, why didn't they bring back Justin Hammer? Well, I think it's probably because there wasn't a
because
lot
of what we got.
there was there was not a lot where we need. I mean, they easily could have brought him back. They could have done a whole story arc where he had gone to prison. He comes out. He's a little more of like a harder character. You know what I mean? They could have done a lot.
maybe
Right,
had
more
some
vengeance,
intelligence.
And
they did have.
I think there was a plan for Black Widow, but I think that I think we're purely speculating, but I think it could be that maybe she got more popular. They expect her to be popular, but she got even more popular than they thought. I think that doing a Black Widow movie after Endgame, after she passed away, I don't know whether that was because fans were clamoring for it or if it had been planned earlier and they made it later, but I think it was actually, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a bad idea to be like, oh, I mean, TV shows have done it, books especially do it, where it's like the series is done, and then 2 years later, it's like, oh, here's this book that explains this section of time that was just. But
they could have, but I think,
yeah. So I
one
think
of the things that makes Black Widow such a fascinating character, a lot like Bucky Barnes later on, is that they're a character that was a villain first, and then they become a superhero.
Yeah.
Just like the Winter Soldier, who eventually becomes the White Wolf.
Yeah. So kind of in sort of as we get near the wrap up of this, so a couple of questions to kind of ponder and want to get everybody's opinion on. So we clearly established that Iron Man 2 is not the best MCU movie, But how do you feel of it? And we kind of did touch on this, but kind of in a summary, how it defined Tony Stark for everything that followed. Kind of your thoughts on that.
I think
Well, as a-
finally looking at it now and dissecting it now, I'm like, if I just ignore the Justin Hammer, even the bad portrayal of Whiplash, like
The hemorrhoid attack. I'm trying
Yeah.
to survive a hemorrhoid attack.
I think it is a good film and storyline for Tony Stark. It is like Josh said, it is the second half of his origin story. And I think that's what I like that the MCU does, is that you're not done learning who these characters are. I mean, that saying is true. You learn something new every day. So with these films, you learn something new and you grow every day. And with every film, I think it was a good story. It was a good continuation of his storyline.
Heather?
Yeah, I think I agree. Like, again, was it the most exciting on its own? Not really, but I think it helped the overarching story, of from Iron Man to Avengers. Like, I think it was needed in there to fill that gap, to flesh out Tony Stark's character.
Josh?
And I still maintain it's my least favorite of the 3 Iron Man movies. But I also, like I said earlier, looking at it as the second half of an origin story, it works really well for Tony Stark. It's a good Tony Stark story. It's just kind of bogged down by the villains that are versus the villains that could have been. I like it. As I've said, there is no Marvel movie in the first 3 phases that I don't like. I like every single one of them. When I rewatch the MCU, I don't skip any of them, and I certainly don't skip this. I still love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that this particular movie, at least we'll say through Endgame, do you feel like this movie kind of overall, the MCU movies that follow, do you think it kind of cemented kind of the tone of how an MCU movie should be?
In some ways, yes. In other ways, no. I will never forgive any movie that has a cartoon villain, because when you're taking your superhero seriously, you need to have a villain that's a credible threat. And none of the villains that we get in this movie, if you're talking about the 2 physical villains, Whiplash and Justin Hammer, neither of them pose a real threat to Tony. Like I said, Whiplash could have been, but they didn't give him enough. And Justin Hammer is a cartoon. He's like Wile E. Coyote. I don't know why he's there. If they had made him a credible threat, a real Lex Luthor type supervillain genius that it would take real effort for Tony Stark to beat, he might have been an interesting character. But as it is, it brings the whole thing down.
Michael?
I think the villain will always add to the film. And actually, what were we talking about? We were talking about the villain, right?
Well, no, we were talking about what my question is, do you feel like this movie, Iron Man 2, sort of created the tone of the movies that followed it? Just the way the movie, not like Iron Man 2, the way it was made and everything else, do you feel like it set the tone for the next couple of movies in terms of how they were made?
I think they learned from their mistakes with the next movies that followed, because what we got after those was Thor, Captain America, then Avengers. And then after that, starting phase 2, you got Iron Man 3, Thor 2, Captain America 2, and Guardians of the Galaxies, which those were phenomenal films. Like, they learned from their mistakes. But I think when we got into phase 2 is when that tone and that formula started kicking in of like, how should the film be made? I think Iron Man 2 threw in a bunch of ideas, and Iron Man 2 became the test of like, okay, what do we learn from this? Because an origin story is pretty easy. You write it all down of like how they got their powers. There's a main villain, and then they defeat the villain, and that's it. Like, it's a first film. This was the first sequel where they were like, okay, what do we do now, because it's not an origin story anymore. It's just a continuation. So I think it was the first film where they tested the waters. Maybe that's why they put in so much stuff. 2 villains, adding in 2 more heroes, War Machine and Black Widow. Like, they started adding in more because they needed to feel out what fans would eventually want.
Yeah, and that's a good point. It's because, and this is also the first movie where, instead of, like I said earlier, this is before they did a post-credit scene, they actually brought in Nick Fury. They started to really do the interconnection of the MCU movies that ended up, obviously appearing more and more in films. Heather, what's your take on that?
So, based on like, I'm listening to what you guys are saying, and I don't have as many opinions on the continuity of all these movies like you guys do, but hearing what you guys said, like, I think the idea that they were just throwing a bunch of stuff in there makes a lot of sense. Like, let's, and the fact that it changed and they didn't have so many different directions they were taking future films. And I think they learned that lesson. There's a little too much going in here and there, and too many, just not full, you don't get the full picture of each of these characters because they had so many new characters all at once, or so many, just pieces of their stories.
Yeah.
And I think as they went forward, they learned to focus those movies a bit more, narrow down the scope of how many, new faces we're seeing and new stories that we need to tell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually, now that
go ahead, Josh.
Well, something that I think about was that, I think that this movie did inform the next several movies, because after this movie, and I definitely think it's because of the way Justin Hammer was received, we got several movies where they got darker and darker. The first Thor movie took itself seriously, had a serious villain with a semi-dark ending. Avengers was phenomenal because everything took itself seriously. There was still lots of comedy to be had. There's always been a lot of comedy in the Marvel movies, but not overshadowing the superhero stuff. And the same thing held on throughout the Phase 2. Phase 2 has arguably some of the best movies. My absolute favorite MCU movie is in Phase 2. But of course, they also found that there's such a thing as too dark, which I think is what hampered Thor: The Dark World, where it got very dark and also convoluted, and that informed them going forward. But by the time they got into Phase 3, they started to think, okay, probably because of Thor: The Dark World, they wanted to make them less dark. And when they found out that,
and then they went the other direction and did Love and Thunder,
Chris Hemsworth. Well, before that, Chris Hemsworth had already stated he loved doing comedy. So by the time they got to Thor Ragnarok, the whole tone of the movies started changing, and Thor Ragnarok is often, you could see it as the exact opposite of the first Thor movie. The first Thor movie was a superhero movie with some comedy thrown in. Thor Ragnarok was a comedy movie that happened to feature a superhero in it. So I think that they went a little too far to the comedy side by the time we got into Phase 3.
Yeah.
Phase 2, overall, they kept things serious. Occasionally went a little too dark, but overall, most of the movies took themselves seriously with serious bad guys and serious good guys. So that with the comedy kind of sprinkled in, these were where the perfect movies are. My favorite movie of the entire MCU, bar none, is Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which is right in the middle of Phase 2.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, Iron Man 2, is it underrated, overrated, a disaster? Final thoughts here before Josh closes us out. Heather, go.
It's not a disaster. Again, it is not the top most memorable, but not a disaster. It tells the story. It shows the evolution of the Tony Stark character. And I think that's the most important thing that you get out of that. The other villains were just side stories.
Yeah, gotcha. Josh.
Oh, I thought Michael would go next.
Oh, Michael.
So I'll put mine up in the wrap up.
Got it.
The movie is still it's okay. Okay, so it's the way I have always said it about Iron Man 2. It is nostalgically an okay movie, and I mean that in the way of like it came out when I was so young, so obviously to me it's still good, but nowadays watching it, even me being now an adult because it's been 15 years, it's not the most amazing superhero film, but it has a good story for Tony Stark. The villains are forgettable, unfortunately, and that happens with a lot of Marvel films. So to me, it's an okay film because I can at least still sit down, turn my brain off, and just watch the superhero film. You know what I mean? I don't have to. I mean, even though we're dissecting it right now, I don't have to sit there and dissect every little thing and every connection. No, it's just Tony Stark fighting some villains. So it's done in an okay way. It wasn't done amazingly, but it was done well enough to where it's still entertaining.
Yeah, and for my take, I enjoyed Iron Man 2. Again, it wasn't as good as the first one, but I think I like it a lot better than you guys do. I like Iron Man 2. I'm gonna say it right now. I'm gonna say it. You ready? I like Iron Man 2 better than Iron Man 3. Boom! Mic drop. We'll talk about that next time. So I don't want to listen. This is the show where we agree to disagree. So
Exactly.
Yeah. So
hold on, the microphone's not turned off yet.
Yeah. So, but I liked it a lot. I liked that it did the whole. Yeah. I mean, Whiplash, and Michael hits a good point, and I'll end my little wrap up with this is that I think there's a lot of movies that just get lambasted, but. For like the one I always think of is Battleship. Like everybody just took a shit all over that one, and it just sucks. I love watching that movie for exactly that reason. It's like a summer blockbuster. I could turn off my brain and just it's stupid fun. Now I won't say that Iron Man 2 it's not stupid, but it's still fun, and I think there's a little more to it than just turning off. In my opinion, turning off my brain to watch it, because it does have value and there is some depth to it and that type of thing. But I thought Iron Man 2 was a pretty darn good movie. So Josh, to you.
Well, yeah, as we've said many times, this show exists to prove to people that it's okay to disagree without it being yellable. You shouldn't be yelling at someone for disagreeing with you. Star Wars fans, listen to that. Snyder Bros, please listen to that. If you don't like a movie that someone else likes, it doesn't mean that they can't be friends. It doesn't mean you can't speak to them civilly. I disagree with Bob that he likes it more than Iron Man 3, and I like Iron Man 3 more. And we'll discuss that when we get to Iron Man 3. But we're not going to fight about it because it's not worth fighting for. It's a freaking movie. Grow up. Aside from that, I really enjoy this movie. I still say it's my least favorite of the specifically Iron Man movies. And I'll even go so far as to say it's my least favorite of Phase 1. But I still love it. So on that note, next week we will be talking about Thor, the very first Thor. This is a movie I love. And that's a movie I really didn't think I would love, but I ended up loving it. If you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe. It really does help us out. I know everyone says that, but it's true. And in the meantime, as always, make tomorrow better than yesterday.